Alright, good morning. Welcome back to JYR Trades. Today is Saturday, March 28th. Although the market is closed, I didn't do a video on yesterday's session, and I gotta tell you, I gotta do it. I gotta give you guys this video because this video, once again, is proving to me that the market is not random, and that if you stick with this long enough, you're gonna start to see things you didn't see before. Alright, with that said, as always guys, everything that I do on this video is for educational purposes, not financial advice. But if you enjoy the content and you want to continue learning on market structure, auction theory, and just become an overall better trader for the future, please hit the subscribe button, follow, share, and like. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about it. Alright, so first I'm going to start with my opening reflection from yesterday. Yesterday was a little different, not because of the profit, because we did make some profit yesterday. The thing is, I could actually see what price was trying to do yesterday. I think yesterday was the second day where I was able to see that, and so I can't wait to kind of cover that here with you guys here in a bit. Alright, so let's jump into it first. How did market open? Okay, first of all, we have Asia here. All right, and Asia did its typical thing. It did a range, okay, and London decided to create somewhat of I guess you can say an imbalance here, right? You can see that price pretty much went down throughout the entire session. It did not try to come back and maybe come up to the mids, okay. So overall, it created an imbalance. So when New York was about to open, where did we open? First things first, we got to look at where is our New York value. Our New York value, ladies and gentlemen, are these two white lines here, okay? And how do I get this high and this bottom on the New York value? Just simply go back to the previous New York session and use your fixed range volume profile tool. Get it from the very beginning at 7:30 a.m. and at about I'm on Mountain Time, but wherever you're at, where New York opens, simply measure it all the way to the last minute of New York, okay? And that'll give you the value area high and the value area low. I used to do the POC as well, but lately I haven't been focusing on the POC. I've just been focusing on the high and the low. So this is how I get that. So where did price open relatively to that? The first question is, are we opening inside value or outside of value? Because if we were opening inside value, that means that we're going to have possibly a rotational day. If we're opening outside of value, then we're having possibly a repair, an expansion, a continuation, a trend of some sort. And so today price opened relatively far from New York value, okay? In fact, we opened let's see, when I measure it here, we opened about 255 points, so it's definitely a good stretched from it, okay? All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, did we open inside or outside the mids? So we have the mids here. Okay, let me here. We have Asia here. We measure our Asia session, and where's the mid session right here. This is a blue line which represents this blue shaded Asia session. This is our mid here, the first one. All right, and then we have our London, which is right here, and we have our mid right here. You can see that purple line. So where did we open? Did we open inside or outside? We open inside. I'm sorry, outside and below. So that right there is giving us two big clues. It's giving us a clue that I mean, it looks like it wants to push south, okay? And then the next thing that we gotta ask ourselves are POCs. So I again use the fixed range volume profile tool, measure the session, and it's going to give you your POC. In this case, it's this red line here. I put a red line, and you'll see that this POC was almost on par with its mid. With our London, okay, it looks like it went even further down, and price opened I think it was, let me see here, just above it, just above it. So what that's telling me is that initially there was going to be a little bit of a, I think a little bit of a compression, a little bit of a rotational before it decided to make the actual move south. Okay. All right. So right away the market was telling me here, as is it, there was weakness um, here, and that more than likely it was going to drop down. Okay. All right. So as always, guys, let's talk about the next thing, the early trap. Okay, because as you know, guys, the market is a liar. The first move the market's going to give us most of the time is going to be not the real move. Okay, so when market opened and I saw that we have our first candle pushing down, and then I saw the second one. Okay, well, first things first, how did I get this fib? Okay, because some of you may be wondering, how did he get the measurement of the fibs? All right, on my fib, guys, by the way, all right, I have these measurements here: 0, 12, 25, 50, 62, 75, 87, 1, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, and 2. And then on the other side, I have the opposite. I have the negatives, okay, of each of these numbers here. All right. Now, how do I get these numbers here? How do I place it? How do I know where to place it in the right spot? Well, first things first, okay, what I need to do is I need to measure the session. So I measure from the most high of London and Asia to the lowest point between the two sessions. Okay, and if the session say gives me, let's just say 300 points, then I get half of that, and I measure 150 points, and that's how I create my fib. If it's 150 points from here to here, I'll go ahead and create a fib, okay, from again 1 to 0. Okay, and that's how I measure that. Second thing is, how do I place the 0? Okay, well, the 0 is placed, first things first, it's not initially placed until I get Remitar. Remitar is this program that I coded myself, that shows me the fair auction 0, the fair value 0. This is where buyers and sellers agree that this is the fair value price of the day of the auction. And so once it migrates, okay, and the migration can take a minute, it can take 30 minutes, it just really depends, right? Once market has settled, once New York has opened, okay, and it gives us a new fair auction 0, I have to wait for it. If it doesn't migrate initially right away, I put the 0 right where New York opens. Okay, that gives me an idea how much it's moving at that point. But once it migrates, okay, once it migrates, I go ahead and put the 0 there at the migration. Now you'll also see, okay, a box here. I call this a 120 point liquidity box because usually NASDAQ will range somewhere within that 120 points. Is it always perfect when it's doing its balancing? No, sometimes it'll come out of it. Okay, it'll come back in, go the other side, and then eventually come back out. Sometimes it ranges within the perfect, sometimes it ranges a little bit outside like it did today. Okay, it just really depends, right? We know the market always gives us a different disguise, and it's really up to us to figure it out. Okay, but as always, the first move is a fake move, and I gotta tell you, after you start seeing the market for multiple months, okay, maybe a year, you start to realize that not every day the tempo is the same, the speed, okay, and sometimes the speed is giving you a sense of the participation in the market. How many participants are in the market, right? We know that there's always going to be a big number of participants, but are the big institutions participating at that time? And so when I saw this here, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a fake move. And right off the bat, just by the speed and the tempo, I told myself this move is going to go to the 25. And the reason why, it was, again, just the tempo, the size of the liquidity box as well. But in all honesty, I wasn't even looking that much of the liquidity box. I was just looking at the tempo. And right off the bat, I said it's going to go to the 25. Then initially, it starts coming back up. Remitar gives us our first clue here. Okay. and what it does, it tells me to go long. Now I know for the most part, when I get this first type of long, okay, from Remitar, it's usually not the move, okay, but it's giving me an indication that this is a second move, and so this ends up being what we call the fail move, because it's gonna go up, okay, and usually again, I seen this Remitar usually reaches when it gives me this move, it usually reaches the 50, sometimes the 62, just really depends again on the tempo. But the tempo this time around, when I saw it, I'm like, it's only going to reach the 25. It's going to do a small balancing act, 25, negative 25, positive 25, and then I said, okay, and then it's going to start coming down. And this is what I said to myself, this is not going to be the main move. The third move is not going to be the main move, okay, and the reason, and I'll explain that here in just a moment here. And what I did is I said, okay, it's going to go down to the 62 perhaps, okay, and it's gonna go down to the 62, maybe the 75, and then after that it's going to range or compress. I think it's more of a compression here, right? And now here, this was one of the moves that I probably would have taken in previous time, and I'm gonna be honest, this is actually a solid move here, because once it gets to zero once again, and say you measure it, and I said I would have targeted the 62, that's 118 points there. That's a solid trade right there, and we're barely at 8 o'clock in the morning. And you can get in, get your 100 points, and be done for the day, okay, but that's not the main move, okay. Now you see some EMAs here. As I told you, I've been working on multiple versions of Remitar, my program here, and let me start with, first of all, 2.0. okay, these three lines, they kind of work like standard deviation bands, okay, but it's using auction theory, all right. And so here, once you'll see right here, these bands here, they're actually the ones that are over here, and you see these lines here, they're actually over here. Once market starts, it comes down, okay, and you know, they'll start stretching, and within that stretch, usually it's a no trade zone for me, okay. But I'm beginning to get a sense of the overall market, but also Remitar itself is kind of giving me just a better footprint. And once I saw this here and we were here, I'm like, okay, target the 62, maybe the 75. I would have targeted the 62. It would have been good. Now price is coming back into Remitar, okay, and that's when I knew, I'm like, it's going to compress, okay. The real move is going to come from a rejection from our initial Remitar auction 0. That's the real move of the day, okay. Could VWAP be involved? If VWAP comes down to this here, yes, absolutely. If price were to come back up here and then it comes through here, that's not the real move. It's got to be from a rejection from the bottom side, excuse me, okay. And so let me go ahead and remove my Remitar 2.0. The other thing that I want you to notice here is my Remitar 2.1. That's my other ones. That's the smaller ones. Right here, once price cleared under this particular red line, okay, that's the other reason why I said this was a legitimate move here, okay. All right, and so here, let's go here, let's open up 2.0. You can see this red line and this red line, we're pretty much close to this area of the 0.12, and that's, like I said, I would have taken this trade here, and I saw it, I didn't take it because I wanted to, as I'm growing in this journey, I'm becoming more disciplined, because I want to be able to actually see the move develop and be able to tell it, you know, be able to say, like, am I really seeing what I'm seeing, what I said it was going to happen? And so as it was moving, okay, At one point, I told somebody that one of my colleagues who's also a trader, I told him at one point when market was around here, I said the move is going to come from the once it rejects from here. Okay, now when you first start looking at this and you start to see that I started to see that it was starting to come back up here. The one trade that I took on yesterday was this long setup right here. Okay, wasn't extremely crazy. It was like a 600 point profit, but once I saw that the bands were going back, price was going back into the bands, and it was actually crossed the white line. Okay, because if you cross the red line, it doesn't mean that we're gonna automatically go if you cross the red line. Okay, so once it crossed this white line, and you saw my other EMAs were below it, and once it crossed here and it gave me a rejection, because remember, sometimes it may cross and then it might reject right away, so you got to wait for confirmation on the second candle. And so once it went in, I targeted really honestly the green line. I should have targeted more the auction zero, but still, either way, it was a good, quick, very little drawdown, if any, and it just went straight to it. And from there, I just observed. I'm like, okay, let's see if the move is real here. See if what I said was going to happen was real. Okay. So, like I said, when it got to here and it stopped, I knew the move wasn't the real one at that point. Okay. But even then, I knew that the move had to come from a rejection from here. In other words, from the bottom. Okay. So the key realization, guys, again, it had to tag auction zero, reject, and that's when it clicked. The move had to come from there. I mean, that's the thing. The expansion, it happened slow. Okay. You can see a couple of times once New York PM got started. Okay. Once New York PM got started around here, so it came down, price came back up a little bit. It didn't come back up to the auction zero. So if you would have started right around here, you would have not seen any kind of drawdown. Okay, at one point, and I mean really any. But once price started coming down here, okay, and say you hadn't joined the party yet, and you weren't sure if it was the actual move. Now, going to be honest with you, once price started to coming back on Remitar, and you see right here Remitar, I had got two versions of Remitar. I got my bands here that on version 2.0, okay, once they get to New York PM, they become flat, which is a great way because what it does, it shows me again the entry points, right? And with 2.1, it becomes really a sniper entry. And what I saw here is if you had been late to the party, you could have joined once it crossed that white line, and we have the other EMAs lining up, and you would have seen very little drawdown if it would have returned. But when did I know that the expansion had really started in New York PM? Well, I was messaging one of my colleagues during back and forth when I could. We were, every so often I look at the chart, and I remember telling him specifically, I said, okay, when we look at Remitar here and we see this green line finally crossing the the red line here, we might get some kind of final liquidity grab, and then after that it's gonna bump. It's going to go and go, and sure enough, guys, it just kept going. And if you look at the fib, okay, remember my fib only goes to 2.0. okay, it went to about probably 80, negative 1.80. Now I'm gonna be honest, some days it goes, like yesterday it went to literally negative 2.0 on the dot. Some days it goes even beyond further. Okay, all right, so Guys, I didn't force any trades yesterday. That's one of the things I wanted to just kind of cover. I didn't force any trades. I observed a lot. Um, I saw it before it happened, and the reason I didn't want to force any trades is because sometimes when you force a trade, it feels like you're more emotionally invested at that time, and in trying to get the profit instead of actually observing what the market is speaking to you. Okay. Um, right now, this is not about profit for me. Okay. It's about learning to read the market. And again, the market is not random. You just have to listen to it. You have to look at it. You have to analyze it, and you have to just pay attention. And it's not going to happen over time. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen right away. But if you come in every day and you journal every day, you take your notes, you really try to analyze, eventually something's going to click. And for me, the last 2 days haven't been about, again, taking that profit and walking away with a higher P&L, but it's been about reading the market so that I can get a sense of order flow, that eventually I'll be able to take this trade from here all the way down here. That's really what this is about. Okay. What you are going to notice on my videos going forward, particularly on the comment sections, I am going to be putting in there how did market open, because for me, this whole process about the videos on YouTube here, it's not so much about trying to become famous or anything like that, or get a, I mean, it would be great the more followers you have and all that, sure, but it's more about video journaling for me than anything else. And if along the way I can help other people and it helps them, great. Why not, right? That's the thing. And so I know that this is not for everyone. Not everybody might be interested in auction theory and market structure, right? Liquidity and all that. But for me, I mean, it's taking longer, but it's definitely now it's starting to speak to me. And so, like I said, if you want to continue with this journey, please follow us, subscribe, set up the alerts so you every time I post a video. I'm going to try to post a video daily. I can't promise you that, but I'm going to try. Why? Because the market speaks differently every day. But you start to realize that it's different disguises, but in the end, it's the three same behaviors. Now, there are days that we're going to have true rotational days, and once we come across those and you see the videos, you're going to be able to understand it even better. Okay. So with that said, I do want to give a shout out to all of you that are following me here, and hope that this has helped you. And keep showing up every day, and before you know it, the market will speak to you. As always, all this content here is educational. Okay. It's not financial advice, but if you do enjoy this content and you feel like you're learning something and you want to continue, all right, don't quit. Okay. Please follow us, share, subscribe, and like. Till the next time.